following thoughts, opinions, stories, and expressions are meant for those who will appreciate them. If you don't, we hope you keep an open soul to encounter another here on 34 Questions. Peace. In 3, 2, 1. What's going on, folks? Welcome to 34 Questions. I'm your host, 34, and tonight I have a very special guest. Rob Morrissey is in the building. How you doing tonight, Rob?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I had a buddy who was on the show recently that I said he had a great time with it. So yeah, I'm doing great. Couldn't think of a place I'd rather be right now, honestly.
For sure, man. Definitely appreciate you making time for this. I know it's not always easy to open up to strangers, so definitely, appreciate your courage to step into the wheel or to step into 34 Questions.
Yeah, dude. No, I'm weirdly okay with opening up about shit. Can I curse? Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
okay,
no censorship. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't think I'm one of those people who I meet you on the street and I'm like, dude, here's my whole life story, but I'm definitely into revealing stuff about myself. Yeah, let's do it. I'm into it.
That's what's up, man. And just know it's really for you and the people that know you that, one day you look back on this and kind of just laugh at yourself or your younger self and be like, oh shit, that was me. But yeah.
Dude. Yeah, I know all about that. Trust me.
For sure. For the folks out there who are unfamiliar with the flow of the show, we start off with some intro questions, some warm-up questions just to set the tone. And then after that, we'll jump into a couple games. And then after the games, we'll get into the Wheel of Fate, where we let the numbers kind of guide our questions or our conversation. And then at the end, we'll finish it off with some closeout questions. Sound good to you, Rob?
Yeah, man.
For sure. So I've been asking you this a couple times already. But my very first question for you is, how have you been? It's been a crazy couple years. You feel like you've been doing well. You've been doing great. How you been lately, man?
I've been good and bad. Ups and downs, honestly. It's since I'm about to turn 27 in June, and I really think that my adult life started at 22. A lot of weird stuff happened 2 years before the pandemic, and then with the last 2 years, things have been super strange, and I like to think I'm in a good spot mentally, it's not I haven't had the worst life in the last 2 years. Probably the worst part about it is how much I've gotten to indulge in the bad habits, right? Of I'm home playing video games. Dude, I gave up on the gym so quick. so fast. I was like, oh, global pandemic? I can stop going to that thing. I'm not allowed to go to that thing? Oh my God, it's happening. Yeah. I used to be able to deadlift 600 pounds.
Okay.
I was not ripped. I'm a bigger dude, but I was in good shape, pretty strong, and I'd gone through I've been going to the gym religiously for 5 years probably, and fully gave that up. I was I want to play video games, I want to do my thing, buy a gaming PC, so that's been the problem, I think. And maybe not just for me, is being home all the time, especially the first year of this whole thing. I just got to I worked from home, and so it was I was always surrounded by my comfort zones, everything that I went to avoid stuff was right there all around me all the time. So that's truly been the worst part about it for me.
I got you. I'm glad you're doing well. Sounds like overall. There's a couple things that you brought up that I wanted to ask you about. One was being an adult, or you felt 22 was when you started thinking like an adult. What's that mean? Because for me, sometimes I feel I'm not there yet. I feel everyone else has these worries and stress, or feel they need to act a certain way, and sometimes for me, I'm just damn, I'm not there yet. Is there something wrong with my development? But so yeah, for you, what's an adult?
Let me real quick, I don't know if you have given away this on the podcast. How old are you?
I am 31, so I'm probably a senior when you was a freshman.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
like literally what I was thinking. Oh, dude. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's a mindset or people in our age group call it like adulting, and I don't like that term because it feels cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like this thing where it's like I don't want to do that, or like I have to do it. I was kind of thrust into it, and here's like, again, fully cool with divulging stuff. When I was 22 years old, my dad died, like out of nowhere, and that happened around the same time I was moving out of my mom's house, like going out on my own, and so she moved to South Carolina. I live in Pennsylvania. So I was already losing that like one anchor to my childhood. And at the same time, the other anchor just kind of disappeared in the depths. Right. And that was like okay, I'm in it. Like I have brothers, I have good friends, I have a support system for sure. And like my mom and I have a great relationship, but I think a lot of it is realizing like, oh, I have to be my go-to, there's no one else where I can like really take a problem and be like, please fix this for me. Like, please, I have to make sure that like when things come up, good or bad, that I deal with them right in the appropriate way. Cause, there are a ton of people who avoid that all the time, whether it's like emotional stuff or just the weird concrete structure we all live in of like bills and rent and going to work and all that. I really felt in those like weird 6 months where it was like everything was changing very rapidly. I was like, okay, this is it. We're taking off the kid gloves now. Like there's no going back. And I gotta be honest, I don't feel any better for it. Like people I think are like waiting for like a switch to flip, and for everything to like change in their perspective and their ability to like work within reality. And it's not like that. I mean, at least for me, there was like a switch flipping moment, but it didn't make anything like better. It didn't change anything. It was just kind of like, it was like the next step, Mm-hmm. I think we all like live whatever amount of time we get on this planet, and like the best thing you can really hold on to is the fact that it's like, well, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I'm gonna get out of bed and I'm gonna have to put one foot in front of the other, otherwise I'm gonna die, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, or literally, like, and that's the thing we're all faced with, right? So it's if it makes you feel any better, I don't have things under control necessarily. I'm aware that it's like I'm the one who is responsible for it, That's the main difference for me. I can't think of the last time I got money from someone that wasn't like a birthday money thing.
Yeah.
There's like two people in my life who like still send me birthday money, love them to death, my mom and her sister, my aunt. And it's like that money, I haven't asked for people to help me with bills or like anything since I was like 20 years old. And that's another huge part of it where it's like, yeah, I'm the guy. Like I have to be the guy for myself.
Mm-hmm. I got you, man. I got you. You made me just realize, well, thank you for sharing too about your pops. Rest easy. For me, I still got both my folks around. I actually live with them. This is my room and basically their apartment. And I think a lot of that does give me that ability to feel young, stay young, because I'm around people that still see me as a little kid, no matter. Yep. I'm 31 years old, but to them, I'm still their child.
You're always gonna be, like that's what my mom loves to remind me, like you only get one mom, and like you're always gonna be my baby boy. It's like, all right, I get it, but also I've been paying my rent for like 5 years. Okay, like cut me a little bit of slack with that.
Yeah, man. I think it's really interesting how relationships with parents kind of change over time as you get older too. For me, I think a lot of it has been them taking care of me, and I'm at that point where that threshold where there are definitely things that they used to do for me that I feel like now I'm doing for them. So, and I'm an only child. I don't know if that equates to anything, but it also just gives me that responsibility. You know, it's one of those things where if I do feel like I'm adulting, it's when I have to do certain things for them, you know, or
Right.
Oh yeah. I had another one, but let's move on to that second question, which is, what would you like the audience to know about you?
I don't know, man. I'm a pretty like, I feel like I sometimes get typecast, like my two older brothers. So I grew up like an only child for the most part. I have two half brothers from my dad's first marriage. They're like 10 years older than me. And one was about to turn 40, which is just like, Jesus Christ, you're so old. It's crazy. It's so nuts. Like I remember like when they were, you know, the age I am now, right? And it's like, oh my God, you know, I'll talk to them and be like, is this what you went through? Like, is this how bad it was at times? And growing up as like an only child, and I feel like I sometimes like fail to present myself the way I want to. If I had to like give people like a warning about myself before any interaction, it'd be like, my face might do something while I'm saying something, and trust me, it doesn't mean anything. Like that's the big thing with me is like I'm pretty self-aware in just the like I beat myself up about a lot of stuff, and so I've been told I like come across as angry sometimes, and I'm like, no, I'm not really angry. I just like my face when I'm just doing my thing is like naturally stoic, and I look like I'm angry and I'm thinking about who I want to punch or something. But nah, I'm a really easygoing guy. I believe in like a lot of spiritual kind of like self-actualization stuff, and I think people like look at me and they think, oh, you're just like a dude who like likes football or something, you know, you're just like a normie. And it's like, no. I've been on 4chan since I was 14. I'm a pretty like I've been around all sorts of shit in my life, and I feel like I always fail to like represent that in the way I want to, you know. No, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say I think you're doing a great job now, man. Like I don't think that's happening at this point.
That's good to know. I wish more people would like tell me when I was either doing a good job or a bad job with that stuff.
I do the same thing, honestly. I'm never sure how people think of me. And what I normally do is if I ever meet someone that's like a psychology major, or maybe they're studying to be a therapist, I'm like, all right, what's your read on me right now? Like based on this interaction, what category do I fit in? Just to get an idea of like how I'm coming off. Even though like I don't try to spend too much time thinking about it because it's not in our control. It's just one of those things that just cross our mind, I guess. Since I don't know for you, but for me, I wasn't around a lot of people growing up until like, you know, it was either school or sports or something. Right. So how I interact with people almost kind of comes through that lens of like, you know, and which is maybe a good or bad thing. Like I don't ever feel like I'm competing against people. I either feel like I'm working with them or like working together to do something. But yeah, that's just like the lens that I sometimes see like workplaces and stuff.
I feel that, dude. I'm a big believer in like the collective, the grander collective that I think a lot of us like forget about sometimes. When I bring it up the most when I go camping with my high school friends. We've gone camping every summer for like 10 years now. It's like, it's a legit tradition. I never thought I would have like cliched legit traditions with my friends, right? But yeah, we go every year, and I always bring up the fact that it's like right now, like we're all kind of relying on each other to like do a thing. It's like we're camping at like a super nice state park. There's bathhouses and stuff. Like it's not that deep, but you know, you sit around like a campfire, and it's like, well, they're cooking, they're gathering firewood, like they're getting ready for like, you know, prepping plates and stuff. Like everyone's doing something, and I like that. Like I really love the idea of like we are we're like more than just ourselves in such a weird way, and people really go out of their way to like try to put people into categories of like the other, like you're not a part of my thing, and it's like, nah, man, I even like I have some pretty like out there political beliefs, at least in my opinion, but I get along with like basically everyone. Like whether you're like a Republican, a Democrat, whatever you are, I can usually vibe with you on a certain level. And then I like hear about how they were like arguing with like someone else who like has different beliefs, and it was just like pure anger and hatred on both sides. I'm like, nah, man, it's truly not that deep. Like I think I connect with people in a way like that, where it's like we're all part of like a grand experience, you know? That's what it's all about, really. This is just like a whole experience. I heard a quote recently where it was like, and I'm failing to remember where I heard it, and I'm worried it might. Oh, you know what? It's Dune. It's Dune. It's
that movie or that book.
So I've read the first two books, and I finally watched the movie recently. And they, you know, movies do a great job of like boiling down the entire book into just like the 5 most memorable quotes, and they stick with you. And one of like my favorite quotes from the books is that there's. The great mystery of life isn't something to be solved, it's something to be experienced. And I just love that. Because I spent like my formative years thinking, oh, I'm gonna figure this out. I've got like the mental ability to like work all this stuff out like a big puzzle. And the more time I spend on this planet, I'm realizing like, oh, there's no grand, like even if there is, it's like I'm not gonna see it at this level, you know? And I've been trying a lot more not to let random stuff like stress me and bring me out of that pocket of like, no, every day is like a new thing. It's a new experience to be had, not something to like game out and then get better at, you know?
Okay. Yeah. I definitely agree with you. And, but I think that for some reason it's been shaped into like a competition, or like, you know, we're racing towards the dollar bills pretty much.
Yeah.
So for you, I guess in your experience, how much more people would you say have that collective mindset versus, you know, people who feel like there are others versus, you know, us? Like, yeah, so
not enough. Not enough, truly. And there are people who like might take that as like, I'm like stuck up, or I'm trying to put myself on a pedestal. And one of my favorite songs is from this European artist. I'm not going to say the country because I don't want to say the wrong country, right?
I got you.
But his name's John Grant. He's this awesome performer. I saw him live once, but he's got some great music. And he's this song called the Silver Platter Club. And the whole idea of the song is that like, there are people in life who just like breeze through it, not thinking about like any, like how their life affects other people or affects the environment around them. And the narrator of the song is like jealous of that, because their whole thing is like, well, every step I take, I overanalyze and I think about it. And then I see these guys walking around who are like naturally good at sports, and like, you know, everything comes easy to them, and they just walk through it without even giving it like a second glance, you know? And I think that's a real problem. And it comes back to that collective mindset where like I live in Philly, okay? I live in Philadelphia, PA. People are bad to each other here. Like people treat each other horribly here. And I'm a pretty polite guy. I hold doors for people, you know, like I came from like a very kind of polite upbringing. And in Philly, I've dropped a certain level of that, not because I'm like angry or I want to be rude to people, but there's a level of me where it's like, well, shit, man, if I'm the only one subscribing to this thing around me, like I used to be like a fundamentalist in that whole like one person can change the world kind of thing. But I am on the level now where it's like, oh, well, if I'm in a room and like clearly no one has my back, I'm not gonna like even put a second's thought into like, well, how do I like get people together? It's like, if you're not with it, just I'm not going to bother you with it. You know, if you're not looking at things that way, I can't change you. I can't make you think differently. So yeah, to answer your question directly for a second time, I don't think enough people look at the collective, look at people around them and think, oh, I'm just like you. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I popped out randomly on this planet and I don't even remember where I was before I came here, right? Like you think about where you were yesterday and the day before and the day before, and like all of a sudden you get to a point where it's like, oh, I have no idea where I was before this, right? And yeah, man, that's a real big part of it for me, is just kind of taking it all in as it is. You know, I really wish people were different, but I don't expect it from people, you know.
I was gonna say that's one of the big parts, man. Like I didn't know it. Maybe there was a time when I was a fundamentalist too. I'm not sure what that means, but because you brought it up and having that thinking of like, oh, I can change the world type stuff. That's one of them. Like, you know, people get bad tattoos. I have a tattoo that says "Change the World," and I
love that. I love that so much. I'm such a huge. I don't have any tattoos. I love bad tattoos, and the reason I don't have any is because I know every tattoo I would get would be horrible, like the most horrific thing of all time. I did a relationship with a woman. We've been together for like 5 years, and she loves to bring up the fact that like on like our second date, I showed her the Bristol stool chart. You know what the Bristol stool chart is?
No, I don't. What is it?
It's a chart. I think it's 1 to 6 of poo hardness.
Oh, stool. I got you.
Yeah, stool, right? Yeah. So it's I showed her this picture because we were talking about tattoos. She's like, you really don't have any? I was like, no, I don't. She was like, what would you get if you were gonna get a tattoo? And I showed her this stool chart, and I was like, I would get this tattooed right on my leg, like right on my thigh. So that while I'm on the toilet, I can just like look down and compare, right?
Yeah, like how healthy am I, or how's
exactly.
my eating habits?
Yeah. I was like, this would be like the way you see like people who are really into fishing, they'll get like a ruler tattooed on their leg so they can just like measure the size of the fish they just caught. For me, it's shit charts. That's where I'm at.
I'm sure your doctor would appreciate it.
Oh, dude, then he'd be like, good. I can see you're taking care of yourself. You're very conscious about your body.
I hear you though. I hear you. I mean, yeah, I got the tattoo as a reminder to myself as like what the goal is. But this is probably early 20s when I got that tattoo. And then as I got older in my 20s, I was like, God damn, I can't change everybody.
Oh yeah,
yeah, right?
Dude. That's so real.
So, I mean, I had to kind of, now in my mind, when I see the tattoo every time, I'm just like, maybe change one person's world, you know? And that's how I've kind of been able to make myself feel better about getting that tattoo.
You should get a tattoo artist to like cross out the change the world and be like, just change one person's world today.
I mean, if there's someone that's super expert on tattooing, then I would definitely ask them. Probably cost me hella money though. But yeah, my third question for you, we're just in the warm-up, man, and we're breezing through. But my third question for you is, if I were to do something in your honor, a way to express the energy you possess, what could I do?
Oh boy. I don't know, man. I think if you really wanted to like honor me in some way, you know, or anyone just in general, probably like, this is gonna sound like really stupid, but like, don't think about me too much. Okay. In a, you know, I not like I'm not worth thinking about or that it'd be a waste of your time, but you know, people worry about like being too self-absorbed, right? I think people spend like a little bit too much time hyper focusing on other people, you know?
Interesting.
And I think about my legacy, and, you know, to bring it back to my dad was like a pretty, like, in terms of legacies, like a pretty successful dude. Went to Harvard in the 1960s, then went to Georgetown Law. Here I am with no college degree, right? Like, how did that happen? and worked his whole life and like did a lot of good. So, whatever your measurement of good is, but I think about like his like legacy, and it's not something that I need to like worry about, I guess. Like someone recently said to me, like, they just want people to like remember them when they're gone. And I was like, I don't care. Like it'll be nice. Like there's that quote that people always attribute to Banksy, but really it's like a thing that Egyptians were saying like 5,000 years ago. And it's you die 2 times. You die, and then you die a second time the last time someone says your name out loud. And I think about that and I'm just like, I don't care how long people are saying my name after I'm gone, right? Because I'm hoping I'm off in like some star field out in distant space, like just like awe-inspired by the colors, right? That's all I'm worried about, is like where I'm gonna be going next. Not that I don't want to leave something behind, like kids but I don't think people should like focus too much on the legacy stuff. I think it feeds into the materialism stuff and feeds into like worrying about your status within society, So I would say like if you wanted to honor me, like do your own thing. Like don't waste any time like worrying about honoring me. Like spend your time like trying to do something that you actually truly give a shit about, because so many people get into so many things they don't really care about because they think it's like, oh well, this will elevate my like status amongst other people, right? Even down to like intellectual thought, where people give so much credence to like, oh well, I listen to like this podcast or this guy, and they it's like, dude, do your own like soul searching, do your own writing, do your own thinking, like make something for yourself, and then when you're gone, like it's not really gonna matter, like these billionaires who are going to space right now, like the second they're gone, like they're gonna have a bunch of libraries and hospitals and whatever they built to try to make people think they're good people, right? But it's like none of that. It's just a building, it's there's not really like a lot of that for me, a lot of value in that for me.
I got you. Well, now we know that's who our thing. I appreciate that. And
my grandkids are listening. Like, go to school, okay? Like, don't worry about me. I was good. I'm sure I had a great life. Like, I was very happy. Do your own thing.
Go to Harvard, right?
Go to Harvard. Yeah, someone in my family needs to like go back there. I think about that all the time. Where I'm like, how did none of us? Like, not me and my 2 brothers, we're all like smart by some sort of definition, right? Like, and none of us went to Ivy League schools. I don't know how that happened. It blows my mind every time. Statistically, we should have gone to some kind of Ivy League school, and yeah.
Was there like no pressure to do something like that, or was there still some kind of pressure growing up?
There was. With me specifically, like, I don't want to go too much into like my brother's lives,
for sure,
and out them on and stuff. But I know with me, I think my parents like at a certain point realized I was too stubborn to like just fall in line at the time when I needed to go to school, and I was really focused on figuring out like who I was, the things that I would tell. I had like a handful of therapists growing up, and I would tell them all the time, I was like, I just can't get my brain to shut off, right? Like I just can't stop the wheel from spinning and all these like random thoughts to come through. And I think like some people would maybe be like, oh, you have ADD or you have all this other stuff. And it's like, no, I just, there's something about me where I was like really preoccupied back then with like figuring out what was going on in my head, and no one had an answer for me, right? And college kind of came around and it was like, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to find the answer there. I might be able to get a degree, get a job, and I'm not going to lie, soon to be 27-year-old Rob wishes he had a degree. I really wish I did have a degree or like something, but I don't feel like I'm lacking in education, like I just think that I was just really stubborn, man. I was like a piece of shit in high school. I I would get into like an argument with anyone about anything. It didn't even matter. And a big part of that was just me being like, well, none of you have the answers. And I'm not gonna like fall in a line just because that's what I'm being told to do. It just didn't work for me. So now I have a girlfriend who's in law school and she's like kicking my ass to like get a degree finished. So, you know, again, to that adulting thing where you're the guy, like you're the one who has to take responsibility for yourself. I look back on not going to college and it's like, well, shit, I should have done that. And I'm gonna get a degree. I'm like enrolled I need to like finish a year to get associate's degree and then, 2 years for a bachelor. So it's like, it's an accomplishable goal. The only person who needs to like do it and tell me to do it is me, So my parents were old by the time they had me. And I think they were just kind of like, this kid sucks. Like they loved me for sure. But they were like, this kid is just like the worst to deal with. He's like got too much going on in his head for anything to penetrate in any real way. So yeah, my mom told me, she was like, you're gonna, because I got into Temple. Again, living in Pennsylvania, it's like, it's really easy to get into a Pennsylvania state school. And I did get an acceptance letter for Temple based purely on my SAT scores. And my mom was like, oh yeah, I'm not spending money for you to like go and smoke pot and drop out in a year, claiming that you're like on a self-actualization journey, basically. And I was like, okay, makes sense. I get that. And she was right, because I had gone to school at 18, like away from my parents for the first time, like fully on my own, I would have fucked it up 100%. I would have really not done a good job, and I would have just ended up back at home with like 50 grand worth of debt on my plate,
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, for me, I'm the one who fucked it up. I went to school not really knowing what I wanted to do, and I didn't fully realize like what the value of college is. It's not just to be there and be with your friends and just chill out, go to class when you want. It's really a place where, I guess you could say this about life in general, but you're always gonna get what you put in, and I wasn't putting anything in during that I look back. I look back
on such a level.
I have a ton of regret for not taking it seriously, and the past few years I've been tiptoeing around the idea of going back to school, but I also have my own feelings about the institutions of that is college education.
Oh, dude, I'll go. We could turn this into like a 4-hour diatribe on like the horrible real estate scam that is modern American college, and like the certification system that goes along with it, where it's like, well, if you don't subscribe, you're not going to get in. You're not going to get to own a house or like be happy. You're going to be a wage slave. What is it? There's like an Andrew. Do you know BioShock? I don't know, like if you're.
I know of the game, but yeah.
Okay.
What is BioShock? Or go ahead.
It's BioShock's like it's like a steampunk sci-fi period piece game.
Okay.
Where
I'm thinking of the same one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And Andrew Ryan is like the enigmatic creator of Rapture, which is like the city under the sea where like artists and scientists and like entrepreneurs can go without government interference or religious interference, like total freedom, right? The idea that it's like the only rules are like a very base set of human rules of like, well, probably don't kill your neighbor, right? But then again, you can, and it's like on you if you get killed by one of your neighbor's friends, And there's a quote when you in the very beginning of the game. I love BioShock. I played it like 100 times through. Andrew Ryan, the main guy, is like giving a speech, and it's all about how like, he was trying. I wish I could direct quote it right now. I can't, but just talking about how like he tried to work with like the government and like didn't really go his way, and tried to work around religion and didn't really go his way, and all these different places where like his set of rules like just wouldn't fly, though, like the way he wanted to live his life. And it's this big moment of finality in his speech where he's like, I rejected those ideas. I always love that, where it's like, oh yeah, I refuse it. I'm stuck here, you know. That's the way I look at it, where I'm like, I'm stuck where I'm stuck. I hate capitalism. I hate all this extra shit that is bad. But I am here, right? I don't have a place where I can go and avoid it. And so yeah, I really try my best to like reject it, but also find my way through that system where it's like, well, I want to own a house one day. I want to have kids and be able to send them to college and for them to have a good life, you know. And it's tough, man. Like that college stuff, that'll really fuck with people, because you spend a very short amount of time on this planet, like learning things and figuring stuff out. And then all of a sudden when you're 17, it's like, okay, so if you got like 2 years, you know, you got your senior year of high school and your freshman year of college. And if you fuck either of those up, like you're done. You're going to be working at McDonald's. You're going to live in a shit apartment in the bad part of town. And I hate that. Like that stuff really, you know, back to Dune, fear is the mind killer, right? It's like fear is the little death. And I really tried to put that stuff out where it's like, yeah, I fucked up. You know, the way you said it, like you got regrets about the way you handled college, right? And that fear of like, well, I can't take back these bad decisions. I really try to like buck against that and say like, well, it doesn't matter. Like I haven't killed anyone, you know, like in my mind, there's like a couple things where it's like, oh, you really made a bad choice that you can't take back. And I haven't made any of those bad choices yet. So, you know, I feel like as much as I struggle or as much like anxiety and stress that comes down on me, I'm still like moving in the right direction. And for me, that right direction is just moving forward, you know, as long as you're moving forward, that's the big thing for me. I tell people all the time, like, take it day by day, one step at a time. It's cliched, I know, but it's like, as long as you're moving forward, right? Like that's all anyone can ask from you, you know? And yeah, that gives me comfort.
I hear you. Yeah, man. I mean, I try to take things day by day as well. You know, sometimes, some days it feels like I'll take a huge step back and then, you know, inch a little bit closer throughout the week. That's usually my rotation. And, you know, even with this podcast, you know, it's like, what is a small step that I can take? Because obviously for me, it's not like I dedicate as much time as I should if I really wanted this to pop off and blow up. But, you know, I also what's important to me in my life is balance. So, you know, keeping that balance may make me move a little bit slower, but I feel good every day knowing that whatever I did got me one step closer. And sometimes it's going to be a sidestep. For me, I know you don't know too much about me. I've had 17 jobs in 10 years.
Wow.
So even with my college degree, I never really stuck and like, you know, became a young professional because I kept changing industries and doing different things. And also a little bit of it is that either you work in government or any kind of work, you're not working for yourself. It's almost that thing where, you know, they try to, I wouldn't say beat you down, but they're going to try to shape you into what they want you to be. Like, that's what I noticed working from, I guess, the lower part of the totem pole trying to go up, is the more you go up, the more you feel like you got to be somebody that they want you to be instead of like, you know, being yourself, which is a really hard reality to face. Like at this point when I'm 31, after those 10 years of bouncing around, I do feel like, well, anywhere I go, it's going to be the same shit. There's nothing that's going to be any different. So maybe as much as I can, like do something outside of work, like this podcast, that will give me that fulfillment. Because I know, you know, the higher I climb, nothing's gonna change. If anything, I might feel a little worse knowing that, you know, my fire is being controlled, you know.
Yeah.
So
it's a good way of putting it. I've worked 4 jobs. Yeah, like, well, if you don't count like under the table restaurant stuff, right?
Gotcha.
I've worked 4 jobs in my life, and each one of those jobs I always had to put up with like the corporate types who are like, they come in once a year and you see them and they act like they're gods, even though like they're never around, and their actual influence on you is so minuscule. And I always look at those people, I'm like, oh yeah, you're not like any happier. Like happiness, I think there's a part of it people like don't want to accept where it's like, oh, being able to pay your bills is happiness, right? Like it's not that. I don't get like happiness out of paying my bills. I get happiness out of knowing, oh, the lights aren't going to go off tonight, right? Or like I'm not, my car's not going to get repoed or like whatever it is. And as you climb that ladder and you make more money and you conform more, like not that making money isn't good, but it's like that's not doing anything other than adding those like creature comforts, making it a little easier to cope with everyday existence. Because my big thing is that like this, people, dude, I get such a like weird rap because I say such crazy things sometimes, but like my whole mentality is like we're trapped in a meat grinder. Like from day one, we're decaying and breaking down, even when we're growing. Like, there's that dumb cliched thing of like, oh, every 7 years, like every cell in your body has regenerated, so you're a different person. It's like, all right, man, by that logic, every millisecond that a dead piece of skin falls off me and a new one takes its place, I'm a new person, right? I really think there's a lot to be said for just trying to find like your own reprieve, or like, I hate to use coping mechanism, but like, because things like a podcast, like, because I have my own podcast, shout out to the Buttermills podcast.
Yes, sir.
My boys. I think about that podcast, and I run a podcast, and so I look at numbers and I see where I'm at. Like, there's no illusion of like my status on the totem pole with this podcast, but it's still like it's my thing. It's my rules when I do it, and I either have to be proud of it and be like happy with what I'm doing, or I have to do something else. Like it's I'm a big believer in the fact that there's no mold. There's no mold for everyone, to your point of like being broken down or being controlled, like your fire being like, reined in. I know it happens, but I know it's not for me. I just don't think it works that way.
I'm happy for you, man. I hope that you never have to like compromise yourself. Cause for me, I keep thinking about it. Like, I'm happy where I'm at. I work with high school students as an after school program coordinator. So, after jumping around so many jobs, I decided to come back to the youth because that was the only fulfilling thing that I could get, from a workplace. At a certain point at every job, I like, do I want to be doing this? Like, I'm sitting doing whatever task it is, and I don't feel like I'm growing. I don't feel like I'm moving or taking steps forward.
Right.
So that's why I had to come back to the kids, because at least, I do a similar thing, on the podcast. I'm connecting with people, and, goes along with, changing someone's world every day or something like that. But yeah, it's I hope you never have to do it, man. Like, keep going. And there's a piece of me that always feels like, I hope this podcast will take off, even though I don't like looking at the numbers, even though it's thrown at your face all the time. Like, oh, you got 2 plays today. Oh, thank you.
Dude. I know that feeling so hard of like, because I worked as a financial advisor for a Fortune 100 company for 2 years. I applied without a degree for a degree required job, and they ended up like bringing me in. There's 100% commission, right? I should have seen the writing on the wall of like, they're not paying me. Like, they're not actually paying me, right? They're like getting me to do all this like extra work. And, I was making good money when I was doing it. But the problem I had with it was just how much time I was spending feeling like I wasn't making any moves forward, Like, I would spend 3-4 hours at someone's home doing that fake ass thing of like, oh, like, tell me about your family, tell me about your kids. Not that I'm like disinterested in people, but it's like, I hate, what? I've worked so many sales jobs. I always tell people, I'm like, I'm not a shark. I'm good at sales because I'm honest with people and I connect with people. But I've never been like a top salesman in any sales job, because it's like, I don't have that thing that lets me just be like, get your wallet out now. like do it because I need the money. You know, I always kind of default back to like, oh, well, if you don't want to buy it, cool. It was nice chatting with you for all this time. But again, working like in a job where it was a fake until you make it environment and it was all on me to make the money. It was like, oh, this just sucks. Like I've never been so unhappy at a job. And before that job, I was a carpet cleaner for 4 years and I cleaned actual shit and blood out of carpets. And I was happier doing that than I was working for this fake ass company, wearing a suit and tie every day, like trying to adhere to some image. I couldn't stand it.
I mean, it just wasn't you, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know for me, I feel like my chillest jobs have been when I was driving, either, you know, delivering packages or whatever. But yeah, and I also didn't like getting caught up in the office politics of stuff.
Yep.
And especially once you've gone through it a couple times, you're like, what the fuck is this? But
the same shit. It's always the same stuff. It's always the same kind of people. And it's like, dude, I just want to get a paycheck and pay my bills and go home. You know, I just want to be able to go home and like do my own thing in my sanctuary. I don't care that Patricia like filed something incorrectly. And now like Tom has had a whole messed up day because he couldn't find this one file. Now it's a whole thing. Like that stuff really, I always hated that.
Yeah, man. It's like, what's the solution? All right, that happened. Let's move forward. Like, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, dude.
So much time wasted in those meetings, man. Just talking about mistakes sometimes. But yeah. Hey, man. We have about 14 minutes left on the pod. Don't feel bad that we didn't get to the question or anything. I love that we could just converse and have, you know, a good conversation. But I do want to, we've been talking about this a little bit throughout the podcast. And my last warm-up question for you is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself?
It's gonna sound dumb, but a 10.
10.
I know myself really well, you know, and my biggest problem is like I know myself so well, and I let myself slide on stuff all the time. I'm really good at like self-diagnosing, where it's like I don't have like a psychology degree, but you know, I make no delusions with myself. You know, I don't allow myself like internally or like when I'm alone to like lie to myself about things. And even though I like might not do what I have to do, again, like I let myself slide way too much, and that's the problem. But I do know, like, I bet if you gave me enough time, I could hand you like a 2-page paper on like, these are all the bullet pointed things I need to do in order to like fix this whole thing, to get it all reined in, right? And I bet I could get like 1 or 2 bullet points through that list. And then I'm going to be like, oh, dude, fuck that list. That list ain't shit. Like, that list does not define you. Don't even worry about it, right? And it's
nobody's like, perfect. Like
exactly. I let myself go on again, back to quitting the gym after 5 years of religiously going. I was just like, oh, dude, it's like totally cool. Don't even worry about it. Like in the beginning of the pandemic, I saw people like doing those like workout classes in the park.
Yeah.
Like just straight up taking like barbells and weights to a public place to work out. And it's like, I just totally, I could have done any of that stuff. I could have just, at the very least, I could have started running more, right? And I just was like, no, dude, don't even stress. It's totally cool. Like, it's fine. And that's the big problem, man. I know myself like way too well, and I'm way too easy on myself. Truly.
I got you. I mean, I could say the same thing about myself, man. Out of all the mistakes I've made, or when I was making the mistakes in college, I remember when I was just playing video games and, you know, smoking hookah, if I say that. Mm-hmm. I would just tell myself like, yo, I am putting myself in a position to be the most driven and motivated person I can be later down the road. So I don't got to worry about not going to class right now. That this will all make sense and all pay off, because I know that deep down that's what I'm about, or that's what like my soul is telling me, that, you know, I'm never gonna get to a point where I feel like I'm out in the streets and I don't have shelter, I can't take care of myself. Ultimately, I know for me, if I didn't have the comforts, that's what I end up doing, is trying to like build to something bigger and better.
You would go out and like work to get the comforts. That's
I wouldn't just like be like, oh, whatever, like
it is what it is. I'm out on the street and I have a bad, well, I don't want to say a bad habit, but I have a habit of like, especially in Philly, there's tons of homeless people, and I'm really quick to be like, if someone asks me for $1 and I just have $1 in my pocket that I don't have any plans on what to do with it, I'll hand it off. Just not even that it like does anything for myself in any, like, it doesn't help me like be like, you're a good person, you did a good thing. It's like I don't know. I look at that and I look at the people where, like, I got to know this one dude really well, who he was every night at a gas station near my old apartment in Philly, and he never wanted money, but he was like, I really like Dr. Pepper. Like, all right, man, bet. I'm going in to buy Jewel Pods right now, waste my money, but I'll get you a Dr. Pepper, dude. That's totally cool. And he like told me a lot about his life, and I never looked down on him or felt pity. But I always got this sense of like, damn, man, like, how'd you let it go to this point where you're like out on the streets trying to like hustle your way out of this situation? Because as bad as things get, that's the one thing I know that I would never let myself like really fall that far, Yeah. I believe in myself enough that like, no matter how bad things got, I'd be able to like work through it, and I would stave off those like really bad times. And good times, bad times, I've had them all, but like, I've never been that like desperate or out. And that's like my driving push is like, well, I never want to be begging people for money. I don't even like asking people for help. It's another big problem of mine is like, I'll be in situations where I could like really use someone's help and I know that they could help me, and it's like, yeah, but they're doing their own thing. And I don't want to like muddy their waters with all the stuff I have going on. And so I'd like to think I take care of myself so other people don't have to,
No, I hear you, man. The position I'm in at work right now, it's funny, my boss tells me like, you gotta tell people what to do sometimes, because I'm always trying to do everything myself, and I get it. But I also feel like it's good because I know other people got stuff they're working on too, and might as well just take care of the things on my list. But anyways, there was a point where I forgot what it was, but basically someone saw me struggling, asked to help me, and it was one of those moments. I don't do it often, and I need to do it more, but I verbally told her like, I need to check my ego right now. Yeah, I need help.
Yeah. Dude. For real.
Yeah. It's a trip though, man. Like, and I don't deny anyone from ever feeling that way, because I do believe everyone has it in them to either get things done or like make it their own way, their own path. But as far as asking for help, I feel like if people, at least in my case, people have to like sit you down and tell you like, yo, man, we're trying to help you, and like you're just like doing whatever. And I'm like,
you're just not letting us. Like, there's a great sketch, Tim Robinson's show, I Think You Should Leave Now, where he's like, you know it? Yeah,
I know it, man.
I love that show. It's like, he's like, Tim Robbins is like choking on food, and he's like refusing to let anyone, like his buddy's like, dude, I'll call the cops. Like, just tell me you need help right now and I'll save your life. And he finally is just like, you know what? I'm just going to save you. I'm just going to save you from choking to death right now. And he's trying to do the Heimlich maneuver, and he's like, Tim Robbins starts choking him, and he's like, I'm trying to help this guy and he's choking me right now. It's like, I feel that sometimes where if I could check my ego at the door, and I have good people in my life who could and are willing to help me. It's like, sometimes I won't let them. I don't know what that is, but it's,
hey man, I think it's just because we truly understand what it's like to like just fight your own battle, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I see other people, I'm like, you're fighting your own battle. How can I ask you to help you fight mine, right?
Yep.
It's a very interesting feeling, man. And I don't know, this is definitely more, we could dive into this too another time. Just want to let you know we're going to fast forward into the closeout right now because there are some important questions.
I'm sorry, I ramble, like I go on, so I'm sorry if I messed up your structure tonight.
You didn't, man. This is what I hope people get to do, or hope people feel comfortable enough to ramble and we just have a good conversation. The questions and all that extra stuff, that's if, like, you know, I feel like there's some uncomfortability or people need to get warmed up to the idea. But yeah, for you, I feel like we've been flowing great. Just want to thank you again for coming through, man. Definitely appreciate it.
This has been a lot of fun.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. So you and Jacob, like, you guys been flexing on the podcast too. Like, I know you said you deadlift like 600 pounds.
Used to. I don't anymore. I would like pop a hammy for sure if I tried to do that today.
I got you. Let's do this real quick. I will ask you a question from my previous guest. This is part of the closeout. So shout out to Jack. If you get a chance, man, this homie Jack, he was a diagnosed psychopath at a really young age, apparently, and we just had this great talk. He was a previous guest, so I think you might find that one particularly interesting. It's probably one of my more interesting conversations I've had with people.
Okay.
But his question for you is, what is your greatest strength? And there's a follow-up, but
okay. I think it goes back to the question you asked earlier of how well do I know myself. I think my greatest strength truly is like being able to like sit myself down and say like, hey man, you're kind of fucking up right now. Like you're not taking this seriously, or you're putting this off. And again, I don't have a great follow through on that of like actually always getting myself to commit. But I think the best thing I do have going for me is really just being able to say, I can't lie to myself. You know, there are people you meet where it's like, oh, you are just living in your own little bubble. It's so insulated right now, and nothing, it doesn't even matter if you sat yourself down in the mirror and told you all the things you needed to hear, you still like just would say, no, that's bullshit. You know, you could have like an eldritch god like come down from the sky and be like, I can see into your deepest psyche and you're fucking up, and you'd still be like, nah man, fuck you, like you're wrong about that. And yeah, I really can't lie to myself. Outwardly I can pretend like I am totally cool and that I'm not fucking up, but internally every day I'm having like mini panic attacks all the time because I just am like, I have to hold myself to a higher standard. I'm trying to get better at that.
Yeah, man, that higher standard is it's all different with how people set that up for themselves. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't know, man. Like one of my questions on the podcast, and we could touch on it another time, is like, is existing enough? You know, it's just being here and being there for like people that love you or care about you. Is that enough? You know, and I don't know what you would say. I want you to save that answer for another day. But I think you did touch on this. The follow-up to Jack's question was, how is your greatest strength your greatest weakness? I answered both, right?
You did. Right. I told you at the beginning, I'm an open book in a lot of levels, and I make no bones about like, I don't care. I care what people think about me in certain ways, but like, I am who I am, you know, and I don't care if people like know exactly who I am. And sometimes I'm not my best self, dude, and people see that. Like I don't do a good job hiding it all the time when I'm like really being my worst self. And I think that's something like people need to get better at, is like you have to be able to like step back. I don't mean to like go off on a tangent. I'm gonna leave you with like,
You're good, man.
One last like good tangent. I recently took a massive dose of totally legal mushrooms. Had, totally, cool mushrooms that had nothing sketchy about them, right?
What's a massive dose to you?
I took 12 grams of.
Okay, that's massive.
Psilocybin mushroom. Yeah, no, exactly.
I got you.
I took this huge dose of mushrooms in a time of like extreme mental exhaustion. I wasn't even in a very bad place financially, or like, it's not like I was like, oh, like I'm gonna get evicted and all this stuff. I was desperate for something. I can't even describe what I was looking for really, but I was like so desperate and in such a weird place. And my girlfriend was out for the night and I had the mushrooms, and I went from being like, oh, I'm just gonna take some mushrooms and like chill out tonight, to being like, let's do it. Like, let's just blast off out of this reality. And I had an experience that really changed the way I think about myself, and a big part of that was kind of identifying that I am the pilot of this meat bag. That's my whole thing right now, is that like there's the meat bag that has the, grounded reality responsibilities, that's stuck here, that needs to pay bills, that needs to have shelter, that, has all these requirements that I can't get away from, because you can't stop eating. You can't just live out in the wilderness. There's like tons of things that you can't get away from. And then there's another part of me that is just the pilot of this whole thing, right? And I think for my entire life, I wasn't able to kind of split the two, right? Where it's like, there's me, and then there's the thing I am in. Like, there's the thing that keeps me connected to this like fleshy existence. And that, like, having that realization and really like giving in to whatever it was, because I don't try to like describe it any more than this. Not one of those YouTube channels who's like, gonna explain to you like every level of ego death, right? But I do think that having that experience and being able to separate me from me, if you catch my drift, it's allowed me to look at life differently. And what you said earlier of is existing enough, I think it is, honestly, because I don't think we get a choice in the matter. We're kind of handed these cards, and everyone gets a different start in life for sure, but we're all stuck in the same place. Whether you have a mansion and a mega yacht or not, like, you're still stuck here with me. It doesn't matter how many private flights you take to how many private beaches, you're still here in the same shit I'm stuck in. We're all just trying to get through it.
No, man, no doubt. And like I said, we could talk about this for sure. We could literally go on for hours. Because I would love to tell you my experiences with shrooms as well. Never taken more than 4 grams, I would say. But it's funny to me because like now it's like when people tell me, oh, I'm gonna do shrooms, and they're like, oh, I'm only take 1 gram. I'm like, how much you really getting from that?
Oh, dude, I did that huge dose, and then a month later I did a follow-up 12-gram dose, and I gotta say, anyone out here is like listening and is looking to maybe you've tried a lot of different self-help stuff and you really haven't found the answer. I don't like the idea of bad trips, because the first time I ever did LSD, I had a horrible trip on paper, right? If I described to you my trip, you would think, oh, that was like the worst experience of your life. But I look back and I'm like, oh, dude, it was the best. Like, it was a truly shitty night. My friends who I was doing it with were mean to me about all this shit. And like, I didn't have a bad trip. And I think people get afraid that they're going to like lose themselves or something. And it's like, it actually, I'm going to sound like Joe Rogan right now, but it might be good for all of us to get lost sometimes, just to see how long it takes for us to get back to where we started, you know?
Damn. Yeah.
And there's nothing that's going to do that like a 12-gram dose of magic mushrooms for real.
Oh, I know, man. I know. And I always tell people if they're going to do shrooms, and they never do it as much, like more than a couple grams here and there. But if you do it to like, if someone's going to tell me they're going to take a 12-gram trip, I'll be like, all right, just remember when it starts hitting, there's really, you have no choice in it anymore. Like,
well, you're in it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
There's no going back. Yeah.
And
there was a moment, not to cut you off. There was a moment because I was home alone just with my cats, right? And for some people that's a nightmare, right? But there was a moment, we had Christmas lights up and my whole apartment was like super bright, and I was like, this is too much, this is too intense, and I just closed my eyes and I gave into it, and it was like, oh, this is peaceful. Like this is great right here. So, you know, not to say push your limits, but with something like that, like Kid Cudi has that line of like split ate the shrooms just so I could see the universe. And I'm like, dog, you did not see the universe. You didn't even clear the stratosphere for real. Like you're still here on Earth with all of us. So yeah.
No, I got you, man. I mean, my personal experience, it feels like it's a wave, you know? And if you get caught up in that like lower part of the wave, then it can be a bad trip. I feel like people who have bad trips are the ones that like are in it and they're like, I wish it could stop. It's not gonna stop. So you might as well just fully let yourself go with the wave, so you know you could definitely ride it out. And it's I've probably, out of all the ones I've had, maybe 1 or 2 bad trips. But even like you said, the bad trips maybe were things that you needed to go through or, you know, think about, which, you know, that's pretty much have been my experience. I let people know all the time to give it a shot at least once. Because I remember, real quick, I was a person who was way too much in my head, like growing up. And then the first time I felt like I had a real experience with shrooms, I was like, all that weight was taken off, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like, holy shit, the picture is way bigger than whatever's in my head right now.
Absolutely, dude.
So, yeah. What would you like to ask the next guest that comes on to 34 Questions?
Oh, wow. This is, shoot, man. I think, what would I ask? This might sound like I'm really not reaching very far, honestly, but
it's cool. It's cool.
I think you should ask the next person you talk to, like, what is something in your life that was insignificant, like a moment in your life that was insignificant, but in hindsight means so much more to you?
I like that. I'm just writing it down.
Yeah, no, dude, because really, like, there's a big part of me where I will think about moments from like 12 years ago, you know, even when I was like 8 years old, that you'd think was just another normal day for any like 8-year-old kid, and it's like there'll be this one dumb moment that really stuck with me for some reason, and I can't get it out of my head, and I choose to believe I'm not alone in that. I think everyone's got that deep down where it's like there was one time where like a dude gave you a fist bump for no fucking reason, and it's like, oh, that was just like for some reason that like really connected with you, you know? So yeah,
I mean, they're all pieces to your puzzle, right?
I love that. Yeah.
And then my last question for you, the question that ties everything together: 100, 200 years from now, your descendants are watching this video. What would you like to tell them?
I hope everything's cool. I hope that whatever distant space colony you're on is thriving and you're doing very well. And I think that, you know, if you've listened to this whole episode and you didn't just skip to the end to hear what your great grandfather had to say, take some time and like really think about what you want to do that doesn't fit into the mold. You know, I'm a big believer in like being weird and like doing your own thing. And whatever that is to you crazy space kids, like I really think you should take a step back and try to figure that out, because without finding that thing, without finding that like weird, strange thing that really means something to you, I think you're probably going to spend a lot of your life lost without a lot of direction. So, you know, get off your like flying hover cars on Mars and like, you know, take a second to feel the sand between your hands, you know, like really take a moment. Just don't even think. Just clear your head and really like listen to what your body's telling you, and listen to like where you are in the universe, you know, and just take it one step at a time.
We hear you, man. We hear you. Once again, Rob, want to thank you again for stopping by. Hope we can do a part 2. I talked to Jacob.
Oh, dude. Yeah, absolutely. This is awesome.
Yeah, we'll get a real episode in for you. I talked to Jacob, maybe getting all the buttery emails on the pod at some point.
Oh, dude, that's gonna be a 5-hour episode.
we'll scale it. We'll try to scale it so it works out. But yeah, man. I mean, honestly, talking to Jacob and talking to you, I don't feel like there's a lot of too many similarities. Maybe you guys might agree, disagree, but I can see where the chemistry comes from. At least, you know, to have the podcast that you guys share. But yeah, can't wait to meet the other guys. Any last? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, Jake, Jacob, Zach, if you're listening, I love you guys. Shout out to the Buttermails podcast. And yeah, we're all very different people, but there's some weird glue that like keeps us stuck together. And it's this podcast, like whether it's successful or not, is like one of the things I'm most proud of in this life. Truly, like I really appreciate the time I get to spend with those guys every week. You know, no matter what the ulterior motives are, like it started as just a podcast with like a bunch of dudes who like spending time together, who don't get to spend time together with each other. Like, you know, making sure like, oh, we're going to spend a couple hours this week. We're going to talk. We're going to make each other laugh, you know? And yeah, I love you guys. If they're listening, I love you guys.
I hope y'all listening. But yeah, nah, man. Yeah, I think I listened to that one episode, which was, I think, number 73, where you guys started off talking about Saddam Hussein, which was hilarious. But yeah, man, I think the chemistry's there, and I'm happy that you have that. You know, I think that's something that like we could take that example as something where everybody has a role, right? Like you said, going camping, everybody's putting something into it, and you know, there's no other. This, you know, it's all together. So
don't be the guy just sitting at the campfire drinking a beer, for real. Like, find something to do to help your fellow people, like, for real, man.
Oh man, I used to be that guy, but nah, I learned. I learned.
I was too. First couple years, I didn't get it, but yeah,
no doubt. But yeah, man, I want to thank you. I want to thank all the folks out there. If you watching on YouTube, listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, appreciate y'all time as well. Yeah, if you like the content, please subscribe and share and do all that good stuff. I haven't found my way of saying that yet, you know. It still feels very rigid, but we have to do it.
You know, we like to ask people, you know, if you like the show, tell your friends about us. So if you liked what you were listening to here, like tell one friend about 34 Questions, really, you know, pick whatever your favorite episode is and just drop it in their DMs and say, hey man, like, I don't know whether you're going to like this or not, but I really like it. And I think, you know, more people should listen to it. That's kind of where we're at.
I like that, man. I might have to take a piece of that and see how I can make it my own, but
feel free, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so remember to reach out, reach forward. As always, much love, and we'll catch you guys next time. 34 Questions. Peace. And it fades from there, man.
That was dope, dude. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that, really. That was great.